Special talk back for you this evening. We have the Lieutenant Governor with us, Mary Taylor. We thank you very much for your time. We've got a busy evening tonight. Senate Bill 5 is obviously the big topic that's going on. Why do you think it's important that this piece of legislation go through, even with so much opposition against it right now?
Senate Bill 5 is just one measure of reform. We are looking to reform the way government operates. That includes state government, local governments, and our school districts. We've also heard from local officials, and we've heard from others, that they need more flexibility or more ability to control their costs. So obviously they're facing the same financial situation that the state is facing, and local leaders need more ability to control their costs when they get in these types of downturn times. It's just one measure it's not part of the state budget, but one measure of an overall plan to give our local governments and our schools more flexibility to deal with their costs to get through these difficult times.
Now, a lot of the unions we hear from these days saying the system itself isn't necessarily broke. It's let us do our thing and we'll work together and we'll help you get to the budget places that you want to be. What do you want to say to them, the people that say the system isn't broken?
Well, I would, in Toledo, you have a great, example of what's going on locally. You've got a city that has a financial burden, that has a deficit that they're trying to work with local unions to close that gap. And they're having a difficult time. And I think it's just a typical example. Mansfield's another. A typical example of where a city's trying to manage their finances and they're getting, kind of stuck at a wall every single time they want to make a decision. I mean, we really need in Ohio and we need in our local governments to rebalance the interest of our taxpayers and our government workers. Right. And this is really one effort to do that.
The anti-5 people seem pretty serious about getting this referendum to happen in November. What is Plan B if the referendum does end up on the ballot and it passes and SB 5 doesn't happen? Well,
obviously the budget contains a lot of reform measures that will help us contain costs in other areas of state spending, like Medicaid is just one example, our prison system. So there are other, we are looking at other avenues to start controlling our costs statewide. But we need more flexibility when it comes to managing our agencies or managing our local governments. So this is just really a vital part of giving local leaders again or state agency directors the ability to control their costs.
With your background as a state auditor, when you look at how finances are done in the state, are you starting to see some places where we really do things wrong that really need to be corrected?
Well, one of the things that's included in the budget, and quite frankly, I'd like to say it came out of the Auditor of State's office, shared services. Looking at ways that local governments and school districts can share administrative services to cut costs. We encouraged it in our performance audit when I was the Auditor of State. Across the board, we would encourage sharing of services where it made sense. We had a website where we gave examples of how it's working in some communities, and trying to encourage our local leaders to work together to start cutting administrative costs.
Do you think we don't, I guess school districts, there's a ton of them around here, local governments, there's a ton of them. Do you think we have too many large governments that maybe if they got shrunk into maybe smaller entities, we could be more efficient?
Over time, I think we're going to have to ask and answer the big question about, we have over 3,700 government entities in Ohio, and does that make sense? It contributes to the high tax burden that we place on our small businesses that are trying to be successful here and create jobs, and I think over time we're going to have to ask and answer that question.
And the little bit of time I have left as Lieutenant Governor, what is going to be your #1 goal, not only this year but going forward?
CSI, Common Sense Initiative, to reform our regulations in Ohio to make it easier for a small business to start up, locate, be successful here, and create jobs.
Okay, Mary Taylor, we thank you very much for your time, Lieutenant Governor, and that's your Talk Back.